My name is Vivian Miller, and I never thought I'd be staring divorce in the face at 32. But here I am, watching my husband of 5 years pack a suitcase like our marriage means nothing more than a failed business venture. Brad, please, I pleaded, my voice cracking. We can work this out. We always have. He didn't even look up from his methodical folding. There's nothing to work out, Vivian. I've made myself clear. I felt my chest tighten, remembering the bomb he dropped on me just an hour ago. The words still rang in my ears, sharp and unforgiving. Vivian, it's been a year. I'm not getting any younger. We need to start a family now, or I'm done. I'd been stunned into silence then, but now anger bubbled up inside me. You can't just put an expiration date on our marriage, Brad. He finally met my gaze, his blue eyes cold and determined. Watch me. I stepped closer, desperate to make him understand. We agreed to wait until we were both ready. My career is just taking off, and you said you supported that. Brad zipped up his suitcase with a finality that made me flinch. Things change. I want a family, Vivian. I want kids. And if you're not on board, then I'll find someone who is. The casual cruelty of his words hit me like a physical blow. So that's it? 5 years of marriage, and you're willing to throw it all away because I'm not ready to have a baby right this second. He shrugged, the gesture so dismissive it made my blood boil. It's not just about right now. It's about priorities. And clearly, we have different ones. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't the man I married, the one who'd promised to stand by me through thick and thin. What happened to for better or for worse? What happened to building a life together? Brad hefted his suitcase off the bed. Life is what I'm trying to build, Vivian. A real family. If you're not interested in that, then I guess we don't have much left to say to each other. He brushed past me, heading for the door. I followed him, my mind racing. Brad, wait. Please. We can compromise. Maybe we can start trying in a few months, or dash. He cut me off with a sharp laugh. A few months? You've been saying that for a year. I'm done waiting. As he reached for the doorknob, a terrible thought struck me. Is there someone else? Brad's hesitation before answering told me everything I needed to know. That's not the point, he said finally. Like hell it isn't. I shouted, anger overriding my shock. You've been cheating on me? He turned to face me, his expression a mixture of defiance and something that might have been guilt. I met someone who wants the same things I do. She understands the importance of family. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How long? Does it matter? It matters to me. I screamed, tears finally spilling over. Brad sighed, looking almost bored. A few months. But Vivian, try to understand. Julia and we connect on a level that dash. Get out, I whispered, cutting him off. Vivian dash. I said get out. I grabbed the nearest object, a framed photo of our wedding day, and hurled it at him. It shattered against the wall as Brad ducked out the door. I stood there, shaking, as the sound of his car starting up and driving away faded into the distance. My world had just imploded, and I was left standing in the wreckage, wondering how I'd ever put the pieces back together. I stumbled through the next few days in a haze, barely eating or sleeping. The house felt cavernous and empty without Brad, every corner a reminder of our shattered life together. On the 4th day, I finally mustered the strength to call Lisa. Viv? Oh my God, are you okay? I've been worried sick. Lisa's voice was a lifeline, pulling me back from the brink. He's gone, Lisa. I choked out. Brad left me. What? That bastard. I'm coming over right now. True to her word, Lisa arrived at my doorstep within the hour, armed with a bottle of wine and a fierce determination to help me through this. As we sat on my couch, glasses in hand, I poured out the whole sordid tale. Lisa listened, her expression growing darker with each word. I can't believe he gave you an ultimatum like that, she fumed. And then just walked out? After 5 years. I nodded miserably. He said he'd found someone who wants the same things he does. Someone named Julia. Lisa's sharp intake of breath made me look up. What? What is it? She hesitated, then set down her glass. Viv, there's something I need to tell you.
I.
I've seen Brad with another woman. At work functions, grabbing coffee. I didn't want to say anything without being sure, but it's her, isn't it? I whispered. Julia. Lisa nodded, her eyes full of sympathy. I'm so sorry, honey. I should have told you sooner. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. How long? I managed to ask. A few months, at least, Lisa admitted. I first noticed them together at the company picnic in May.
May.
4 months ago. While I'd been planning our anniversary trip, Brad had been falling for someone else. I feel so stupid, I said, tears welling up again. How did I not see it? Lisa wrapped an arm around me. This is not your fault, Viv. Brad's the one who broke his vows, not you. As the wine flowed and the night wore on, I found myself examining my relationship with Brad in a harsh new light. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much of our marriage had revolved around his desires, his timeline. You know what the worst part is? I said, staring into my empty glass. I'm starting to think he never really loved me at all. It was always about having kids, starting a family. I was just convenient. Lisa squeezed my hand. Don't say that. You're an amazing woman, Viv. Any man would be lucky to have you. But the seed of doubt had been planted. I thought back to our whirlwind courtship, how quickly Brad had wanted to get married, how he'd started talking about kids on our honeymoon. Had I just been a means to an end for him? I gave him 5 years of my life, I said, anger finally breaking through the fog of grief. 5 years, and he throws it all away for some younger model who's ready to pop out babies on demand? Lisa's eyes flashed with righteous fury. He doesn't deserve you, Viv. And, trust me, karma's going to catch up with him eventually. As the night wore on, Lisa's unwavering support began to bolster my spirits. By the time she left, promising to check in on me daily, I felt a tiny spark of hope rekindling in my chest. I might be down, but I wasn't out. Brad had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. I could wallow in misery, or I could pick myself up and start rebuilding my life. As I crawled into bed that night, exhausted but clear-headed for the first time in days, I made a silent vow to myself. I would not let Brad's betrayal define me. I would emerge from this stronger, wiser, and ready to find the kind of love I truly deserved. Little did I know, that love was waiting just around the corner, ready to change my life in ways I never could have imagined. 6 months after Brad's departure, I found myself at a charity gala, coordinating the event with a newfound passion for my work. The sting of betrayal had faded, replaced by a determination to rebuild my life on my own terms. As I surveyed the bustling ballroom, a tall, dark-haired man caught my eye. He was fiddling with a camera, a look of intense concentration on his face. Need a hand? I offered, approaching him. He looked up, startled, then broke into a warm smile. That obvious, huh? I'm Alex. Graphic designer by trade, amateur photographer by night. Vivian, I replied, returning his smile. Event planner and your savior for the evening. We spent the next hour chatting between his photo sessions and my event management duties. Alex was witty, kind, and refreshingly genuine. By the end of the night, we'd exchanged numbers and made plans for coffee. Our first date turned into a second, then a third. Before I knew it, Alex had become a constant in my life, his steady presence healing wounds I didn't even know I still had. One night, as we strolled through the park, hand in hand, Alex turned to me with a serious expression. Viv, there's something I need to ask you, he began, his voice trembling slightly. My heart raced, a mix of excitement and fear coursing through me. Alex dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. Vivian Miller, will you marry me? Tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. As Alex slipped the ring onto my finger, I felt a surge of joy I hadn't experienced in years. Later that night, curled up on Alex's couch, I confessed my lingering fears about marriage and children. Alex, I need you to know, I'm not sure if I'm ready for kids yet. My ex-husband, Alex silenced me with a gentle kiss. Viv, listen to me. Having children is a decision we'll make together, when we're both ready. There's no rush, no ultimatum. I love you for you, not for some hypothetical future family. His words washed over me like a balm, soothing fears I didn't even realize I still harbored. The next few months were a whirlwind of wedding planning and domestic bliss. Alex and I moved in together, merging our lives with an ease that still amazed me. On our wedding day, as I walked down the aisle towards Alex, I felt a sense of rightness I'd never experienced before. This was what love was supposed to feel like: supportive, nurturing, and free from pressure or conditions. As we exchanged vows, Alex's eyes shining with unshed tears, I silently thanked the universe for bringing him into my life. I promise to love you, support you, and stand by you through whatever life throws our way, Alex said, his voice steady and sure. You are my partner, my equal, and my best friend. I can't wait to build a life with you, whatever that may look like. At the reception, Lisa pulled me aside, her face glowing with happiness for me. I told you karma would work its magic, didn't I? She said with a wink. Alex is perfect for you, Viv. I'm so glad you found each other. As Alex and I swayed on the dance floor for our first dance, I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling truly at peace for the first time in years. Thank you, I whispered. Alex pulled back slightly, looking at me quizzically. For what? For loving me, for being patient, for showing me what a real partnership looks like. He smiled, pulling me close again. Always, Viv. We're in this together, now and forever. As the night wore on, surrounded by friends and family, I realized that my failed marriage with Brad hadn't been an ending, but a beginning. It had led me here, to this moment, to this man who loved me unconditionally. The future stretched out before us, full of promise and possibility. Whatever came next, I knew Alex and I would face it together, as true partners should. Life with Alex was everything I'd ever dreamed of and more. Our first year of marriage flew by in a blissful whirlwind of love, laughter, and mutual support. We'd settled into a cozy routine, balancing our careers with quality time together, and I never felt more content. It was on a crisp autumn morning that I first noticed something was different. The wave of nausea hit me as I was getting ready for work, and suddenly, everything clicked into place. The fatigue, the mood swings, the strange food cravings, it all made sense. With trembling hands, I took a pregnancy test. Those 2 minutes felt like an eternity, but when I saw the positive result, my heart soared. Alex and I hadn't been actively trying, but we'd agreed to let nature take its course. And now, it seemed, nature had spoken. That evening, I surprised Alex with a special dinner. As we sat down to eat, I couldn't contain my excitement any longer. Alex, I have something to tell you. I began, my voice quivering with emotion. He looked up, concern flashing across his face. Is everything okay, Viv? I nodded, tears of joy welling up in my eyes. More than okay. Alex, we're going to have a baby. The look of pure joy that spread across his face is something I'll never forget. He leapt from his chair, scooping me up in a tight embrace. Oh, Viv, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. This is amazing. We're going to be parents. The next few months were a whirlwind of doctor's appointments, nursery planning, and shared excitement. Alex was there every step of the way, holding my hand during ultrasounds, indulging my midnight cravings, and reassuring me through moments of doubt. One afternoon, as we were poring over baby name books, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Curious, I answered. Hello. Vivian. The voice sent a chill down my spine.
Brad.
What do you want, Brad? I asked, my tone icy. Alex looked up, concern etched on his face. I heard you're pregnant, Brad said, his voice dripping with bitterness. Funny how that worked out, isn't it? You wouldn't have a kid with me, but you're happy to pop one out for your new husband. I felt a surge of anger. That's none of your business, Brad. How did you even find out? He ignored my question. I always knew you were lying about not being ready. You just didn't want to have a family with me. What was wrong with me, Vivian? Was I not good enough for you? Brad, stop it, I snapped. Our marriage ended because you gave me an ultimatum and cheated on me. My pregnancy now has nothing to do with you. Please don't contact me again. I hung up, my hands shaking. Alex was by my side in an instant, wrapping me in a comforting embrace. "Was that Brad?" he asked gently. I nodded, fighting back tears. He found out about the baby somehow. He accused me of lying about not being ready for children when we were together. Alex's jaw clenched, but his voice remained calm. "Viv, you know that's not true. We made this decision together, when we were both ready. Don't let him get to you." I took a deep breath, letting Alex's words wash over me. He was right. This pregnancy, this child, was a product of love and mutual decision-making, not manipulation or ultimatums. "You're right," I said, managing a small smile. "This is our moment, and I won't let Brad taint it." As if in agreement, I felt a small flutter in my belly, our baby's first kick. I gasped, grabbing Alex's hand and placing it on my stomach. "Feel that?" I whispered. Alex's eyes widened in wonder. "Is that?" I nodded, tears of joy replacing those of frustration. "That's our baby, Alex. Our little miracle." As we stood there, marveling at the life we'd created together, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, be it Brad's bitterness or the trials of parenthood, Alex and I would face them together, united in our love for each other and our growing family. The doorbell rang on a quiet Sunday afternoon, startling me from my peaceful nap on the couch. At 6 months pregnant, unexpected visitors were the last thing I wanted. Alex was out running errands, so I heaved myself up with a sigh and waddled to the door. I opened it to find a young woman standing there, her eyes red-rimmed and her posture nervous. She looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place her. "Can I help you?" I asked, instinctively resting a hand on my swollen belly. The woman's eyes darted to my stomach, then back to my face. "Are you Vivian? Vivian Miller?" I nodded, suddenly wary. "Yes, that's me. And you are?" "I'm Julia," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Julia Harris. I'm Brad's wife." The world seemed to tilt for a moment. Julia, the woman Brad had left me for. The one he'd claimed understood the importance of family. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. Julia flinched. "I'm sorry to bother you. I didn't know where else to go."
"Can we talk?"
"Please." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside to let her in. As she passed, I noticed the slight swell of her own stomach. So Brad had gotten what he wanted after all. We sat in awkward silence for a moment before Julia spoke again. "I know this is strange, me coming here like this, but I needed to talk to someone who might understand." "Understand what?" I asked, still guarded. Julia's eyes welled with tears. "What it's like to be married to Brad." And then, like a dam bursting, Julia poured out her story. How Brad had swept her off her feet, promising her the world and a perfect family. How quickly things had changed after their wedding. The constant pressure to get pregnant, the mood swings, the emotional manipulation. "He's obsessed with having a baby," Julia said, wiping her eyes. "And now that I am pregnant, it's even worse. Nothing I do is right. He criticizes everything: what I eat, how I sleep, even how I breathe. He says I'm going to be a terrible mother." As I listened, a chill ran down my spine. It was like hearing my own experiences reflected back at me, but amplified. "Has he?" I hesitated, not wanting to overstep. "Has he ever hurt you physically?" Julia shook her head. "No, never. But sometimes I'm afraid he might. He gets so angry, Vivian. I don't know what to do." I reached out and took her hand, my earlier reservations melting away. "Julia, listen to me. What Brad is doing is not okay. It's emotional abuse, and you don't have to put up with it." "But the baby," she whispered, placing a protective hand on her stomach. "I can't leave now. He'll never let me go." "You can and you must," I said firmly. "For your sake and your child's. There are resources, people who can help." As we talked, I shared my own experiences with Brad, the manipulation and gaslighting I'd endured. Julia listened, her eyes widening with recognition. "I thought I was crazy," she said. "He always makes everything sound like it's my fault." "That's what abusers do," I told her gently. They make you doubt yourself. But Julia, you're stronger than you know. By the time Alex returned home, Julia and I had formulated a plan. I'd given her the number of my divorce lawyer and information on local women's shelters. She left with a glimmer of hope in her eyes that hadn't been there when she arrived. As I watched her drive away, I felt a mix of emotions: anger at Brad for continuing his manipulative behavior, sadness for Julia and the difficult road ahead of her, but also a sense of purpose. I couldn't change the past, but maybe, just maybe, I could help prevent another woman from enduring what I had. Alex wrapped his arms around me from behind, his hands resting on our growing child. Everything okay, love? I leaned back into his embrace, grateful for his steady presence. It will be, I said, determination in my voice. It will be. 2 weeks after Julia's unexpected visit, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Julia, asking to meet at a quiet cafe across town. Despite my growing belly making movement increasingly difficult, I agreed, sensing the urgency in her message. When I arrived, Julia was already there, her eyes darting nervously around the room. As I lowered myself into the chair across from her, I noticed the dark circles under her eyes and the slight tremor in her hands. Julia, what's wrong? I asked, concern etching my features. She took a shaky breath. It's Brad. He's gone completely off the deep end, Vivian. Julia's words tumbled out in a rush. She explained how Brad's obsession with having children had reached new heights. Despite her pregnancy progressing normally, he'd become convinced that something was wrong. He keeps saying the baby can't be his, Julia said, her voice barely above a whisper. He's demanding a paternity test. Says I must have cheated because there's no way he could have any issues. I felt a chill run down my spine. Has he hurt you, Julia? She shook her head. Not physically, but the things he says, the way he looks at me. I'm scared, Vivian, for myself and for the baby. I reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Have you considered leaving? Remember the resources we talked about? Julia nodded. I've been in touch with a lawyer. But Brad, he's relentless. He's even threatened to sue for full custody once the baby is born. As we talked, Julia revealed more about Brad's erratic behavior. His refusal to attend doctor's appointments, his late-night rants about her supposed infidelity, his increasing isolation of her from friends and family. I agreed to the paternity test, Julia admitted, her eyes downcast. I thought it would put his mind at ease. But when the results came back, let me guess, I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. The baby is his. Julia nodded. 100%. But instead of calming him down, it's made things worse. Now he's convinced the doctors are in on some conspiracy against him. I sat back, my mind reeling. The Brad I'd known had been controlling and manipulative, but this level of paranoia and abuse was beyond anything I'd experienced. Julia, I said, my voice firm, you need to leave. Now. This isn't just about you anymore. Your baby deserves better than to be born into this toxic environment. Tears welled up in Julia's eyes. I know. God, I know. But I'm so scared, Vivian. What if he comes after me? I squeezed her hand again. We won't let that happen. I'll help you. We'll get you somewhere safe. As we formulated a plan, I felt a mix of emotions churning inside me. Anger at Brad for continuing his cycle of abuse, fear for Julia and her unborn child, and a grim determination to put an end to his manipulations once and for all. By the time we left the cafe, Julia had a tentative smile on her face. We'd contacted her lawyer, made arrangements with a women's shelter, and set a date for her to leave Brad for good. As I watched her drive away, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Lisa. We need to talk, it read. It's about Brad. Things at work are getting ugly. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever was coming next. It seemed the house of cards Brad had built was finally starting to collapse. And as much as I wanted to wash my hands of him entirely, I knew I couldn't stand by and watch him hurt more people. With one hand on my belly, feeling my own child move within me, I made a silent vow. This ended now. For Julia, for her baby, and for every other woman Brad might try to manipulate in the future. It was time to face the monster I'd once called my husband and put an end to his reign of emotional terror once and for all. The day Julia filed for divorce, all hell broke loose. I received a frantic call from her as she left the courthouse, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and determination. "I did it, Vivian," she said, her words rushed. "I filed the papers. But Brad, he's furious. He's threatening to ruin me, to take everything." I tried to calm her, assuring her that she'd made the right decision, when my call waiting beeped. It was Lisa. "Julia, I have to go," I said quickly. "Stay safe. Call me if you need anything." I switched over to Lisa's call, my heart racing. "Lisa, what's going on?" "Viv, you need to get down to the office. Now." Lisa's voice was tight with tension. "Brad's gone off the deep end. He's telling everyone who'll listen that you're to blame for everything. His failed marriages, his issues with Julia, even his work problems." I felt a surge of anger.
"What?"
"That's ridiculous." "I know, but it's worse than that," Lisa continued. "He's been engaging in some seriously unethical behavior at work. Falsifying reports, harassing female employees. I've been gathering evidence for weeks, and I'm about to present it to the board. But I think you should be here." My mind reeled. I knew Brad was capable of manipulation, but this level of deceit and misconduct was beyond anything I'd imagined. "I'm on my way," I said, already reaching for my keys. Alex insisted on driving me, worry etched on his face. As we pulled into the company parking lot, I saw a commotion near the entrance. Brad was there, his face red with rage, shouting at a group of employees. "It's all her fault," he was yelling, pointing wildly. "Vivian ruined everything. She's poisoned all of you against me." I took a deep breath, squeezing Alex's hand before stepping out of the car. As I approached, Brad's eyes locked onto me, filled with a hatred that sent chills down my spine. "You," he snarled, lunging towards me. Alex quickly stepped between us, his stance protective. "That's enough, Brad." Lisa's voice cut through the chaos. She emerged from the building, flanked by 2 security guards and what looked like members of the company board. "Mr. Miller," one of the board members said sternly, "your behavior is completely unacceptable. We've heard Ms. Thompson's evidence, and coupled with your actions today, we have no choice but to terminate your employment effective immediately." Brad's face went pale. "You can't do this to me," he stammered. "It's all lies. Vivian put you up to this, didn't she?" I shook my head, feeling a mix of pity and disgust. "This is all you, Brad. Your choices, your actions. It's time to face the consequences." As security began to escort Brad from the premises, he made one last desperate lunge towards me. "You ruined my life," he shouted. "You and that whore Julia. I'll make you both pay for this." Alex stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. "That's enough. You come near Vivian or Julia again, and you'll have me to deal with." We watched as Brad was led away, his threats fading into incoherent ramblings. The gathered crowd began to disperse, murmuring in shock and disbelief. Lisa approached us, looking exhausted but relieved. "It's over," she said softly. "The board's filing a formal complaint with the police about his behavior. And with the evidence I've gathered, he'll be lucky if he ever works in this industry again." I felt a wave of emotions wash over me: relief, vindication, and a lingering sadness for the man I once thought I loved. "Thank you, Lisa," I said, hugging her tightly, "for everything." As we drove home, Alex's hand firmly clasped in mine, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Brad's reign of manipulation and abuse was finally over. Julia was free, I was free, and any future women he might have hurt were now protected. "Are you okay?" Alex asked softly, glancing at me. I nodded, resting a hand on my swollen belly. "Yeah, I think I am. For the first time in a long time, I really think I am." As we pulled into our driveway, I allowed myself to look forward to the future, a future free from Brad's toxic influence, filled instead with the love and support of my true family. The first cry of my newborn son pierced the air, and in that moment, all the pain and struggle of the past melted away. I looked up at Alex, his eyes brimming with tears of joy, and felt an overwhelming surge of love for my little family. "He's perfect," Alex whispered, gently cradling our son. "What should we name him?" I smiled, exhausted but elated.
Peter.
"Let's call him Peter." As I held Peter in my arms, marveling at his tiny fingers and button nose, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. The pain of Brad's betrayal, the unexpected friendship with Julia, the confrontation at the office, it all seemed like a distant dream now. A week after we brought Peter home, Lisa came to visit. As she cooed over the baby, her expression grew serious. "Viv, I have some news about Brad," she said hesitantly. I tensed, instinctively holding Peter closer. "What is it?" Lisa sighed. "He's under investigation for workplace harassment. Turns out, his behavior at our company was just the tip of the iceberg. Several women from his previous jobs have come forward with complaints." I felt a mix of emotions: anger at Brad's continued misconduct, relief that he was facing consequences, and a twinge of sadness for the man I once thought I knew. "And Julia?" I asked, thinking of the scared, pregnant woman who had sought my help. "She's doing well," Lisa assured me. "The divorce is finalized, and she's staying with her sister. Her baby is due next month." I nodded, feeling a sense of closure. Brad's actions had hurt so many people, but now, finally, justice was being served. As the weeks passed, I settled into motherhood with Alex by my side. Every sleepless night, every diaper change, every tiny milestone, we faced it all together, our love growing stronger with each passing day. One sunny afternoon, as we sat in the park watching Peter nap in his stroller, Alex turned to me with a serious expression. "Viv, I want you to know something," he said, taking my hand. "I'm so grateful for you and Peter. You've given me more happiness than I ever thought possible." I squeezed his hand, feeling my heart swell. "You've done the same for me, Alex. You showed me what real love and partnership look like." He smiled, then continued, "I know the journey to get here wasn't easy, but I want you to know that I'll always be here, supporting you and Peter, no matter what life throws our way." Tears welled up in my eyes as I leaned in to kiss him. "I know you will. That's why I love you so much." As we sat there, basking in the warmth of our love and the promise of our future together, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The pain and betrayal of my past with Brad had led me here, to this moment of pure happiness with Alex and Peter. I thought of Julia, hoping she too had found peace and the strength to build a new life for herself and her child. I silently thanked Lisa for her unwavering friendship and support through it all. Looking down at Peter, his tiny chest rising and falling with each breath, I made a silent vow. I would cherish every moment with my family, nurture the love Alex and I shared, and always remember the lessons I'd learned about self-worth and true partnership. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the park, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The road had been long and often painful, but it had led me here, to a life filled with love, respect, and the joy of true family. Alex stood up, gently lifting Peter from the stroller. "Ready to head home?" he asked, smiling down at me. I nodded, rising to join them. "Yes," I said, linking my arm through his. "Let's go home." As we walked away, Peter nestled safely between us. I knew that whatever challenges the future might hold, we would face them together, a true family bound by love, trust, and mutual respect. The shadows of the past had faded, replaced by the bright promise of our future together.